right. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining today's session. And then apologies, I wasn't able to join on I think, the previous class. But I'm really, really excited to be here to talk about developer community management. Pardon me, my voice is a little bit crappy. It's kind of cold here, so I'm trying to, get used to the weather. All right. So today we'll be talking about developer community management, and then what are the things you need to understand about the developer ecosystem, how to create an engaging community, and also some of the key benefits and efforts that you need to put into building a vibrant developer ecosystem. So my name is Idris Olubisi. I am a software engineer and a technical writer. I currently work as a developer advocate at Axela, and I'm also the founder of Web3 Africa. And I also volunteer to lead the Polygon Guild Lagos. So you can find me anywhere at Olanesoft, Twitter, any of the social media platform. Yeah, I'm happy to connect with everyone. So now, what are the things you will learn in this talk? First, we'll talk about engaging developers effectively, and then we'll talk about executing impactful developer events, specifically like virtual events or physical events. And then we'll talk about planning and executing great hackathons, which is like a type of event that you normally find within the developer ecosystem. And then we talk about, promotion and visibility. How can you promote your events? Either it's a virtual event, either it's a hybrid event, or a physical event. What are some of the things you should take a look at? And also, how can you bring visibility to your events that you're currently hosting? So I want to quickly talk about like a very short story titled The Gardener's Gathering. So this story, in a small village, there was a community garden where everyone loved to, grow their own plants. And then each gardener for that particular garden had their own approach of doing it. So some were experts in, flowers, some experts in vegetables, and some are like completely, beginner. They don't know anything, but then they want to, be a part of that gardeners community or that part of gardeners gathering. And then they also want to contribute. Of course, they want to improve. So one day someone took up the initiative, and then he is an experienced gardener, and then she suggested to hold a gardeners gathering where you can have the idea like to bring all the gardeners together, and also not just bringing them together, but sharing knowledge, because everyone has like different perspective of knowing about vegetable, knowing about plants, and some other fields or some other niche within about gardens generally. So the goal there was to like bring everyone together to share knowledge and then learn from each other. So the first thing they did first was to organize a very small event in the garden, and then during that small event, the experienced gardeners, like the organizer herself, they share tips, about soil nutrition, about some things related to like pest control and all of these things. So it gave like kind of avenue where beginners that literally do not understand anything get to ask questions from these professionals or like these experts that already know a whole lot about gardens and how to do pest controls and alongside all other things within a particular garden. So this part of the gathering is like this particular gardeners gathering, which you can call like the gardeners event or something like that, is actually tailored to bring like experts closer to individual, where everyone could share and then gain expertise. But then they didn't stop there. They decided to like plan something bigger, because now they've organized a very small event within their local environment, and now they want to plan something bigger. The goal here is to like attract like different gardeners from nearby villages, and also so that it doesn't look like, oh, it's because these people are way closer to me, that's why we have access to them. How about bringing like every other person from like neighboring communities and also neighboring villages? Then planning these events gives them the opportunity to organize even way bigger session where they have to consider both, experienced gardener, beginner, similar to how they would plan, similar to how they plan the small events. So, but then if you notice the goal here in this story is that they've tried to, do a very small event and then get feedback from people, and they gradually move on to doing the bigger one that includes the neighboring community. At the end of the day, this gathering was a success, right? The event went well. Beginners felt so much comfortable and also confident about their skill sets. And then after the entire event, the organizer and also those that attended the event shared what they learned, and also they even reach out to more gardeners, sharing all of these things that is happening. Say, hey, we had the event, gardeners gathering event that happened last weekend. I gave a talk, or in fact, even though you didn't give any talk, maybe you learned a couple of things, and then you can talk about it on social media. So this simple story tells you how effective or how prominent or how important organizing an event to bring individuals, professionals, and experts together within a particular community. But then if you take a look at this story that I shared about the gardener that I just wanted to explore and then connect to other gardeners within the community, and then also organizing a bigger event. But now let's take a look at, what if we replace gardener with developers? What difference does it make? Right. So think about it now in such a way that it's no longer a gardener's event, but it is a developer event. Exactly the same thing you would achieve if you want to organize developer events. Number one here is considering, what are some of the experience level of the developers. Number two here is what expertise, who have different, expertise in different niche that you want to bring together. Number three is how to make the event even bigger after organizing a small meetup in your local environment, how to include other communities, and then organizing that same event, but now on a bigger scale. Number four is after the event, everyone shared their idea. How can you utilize social media just like the way they did after, the gardeners gathering, and then they were able to post about that particular event online to even attract more gardeners. That's exactly the way I want you guys to think about this entire presentation on how to succeed as anyone planning events for developers, or if you're thinking about a developer community events or developer community management. So let's move on. So what exactly do you need to create an engaging developers effectively? What are some of these things? It's not about just organizing events and then just organizing for event's sake and that's it. But it goes beyond that, because now you need to start thinking about, now that I've organized this first event, or I'm planning to organize this first event, after the event, what are some of the pre-event activity? What are some of the post-event activity that you want to embark on? So these are the ways that you can engage your developers effectively. But now let's take a deep dive on the categories or what exactly is required. So here, engaging developers effectively, I kind of categorize them into two categories, where we have the developer empathy and also the event maximization. So now the developer empathy, where you care about the developer, their needs, and then how to maximize events where those developers are attending. So now let's talk about the first one, which is the developer empathy. When we mean developer empathy, what exactly are we talking about in this context, right? So in this context, we're talking about understanding and considering developers' experience. That's number one. Another one is the challenges those developers are facing, and then the need that's involved for for recognizing their diverse skills level, their learning style, and then career goals. So all of these classes, like in this particular context where we're talking about developer empathy, we are not just considering the events, just like the story I mentioned, like I kind of gave earlier on, not just the events, but we are also taking a look at what are some of the challenges they are facing, what are some of the needs that they need, like what are some of the things that they need to recognize their own diverse skill set or like skill level, their learning style, and also their career goals. That's the first category. So by applying this type of developer empathy, event organizers and early leaders can create more inclusive and also relevant and engaging experience for those developers that would attend their events. So because now you understand the developer experience, you understand some of the challenges they are going through, you understand what they need to grow as a developer, you understand their learning style and their career goals. So the event you'll be organizing can easily be tailored towards solving either all of these problems or solving like the most important one based on priority. So still under developer empathy, what are some of the things that we need to take, like you need to account for? So I'll keep using the word you and we, right? It's still kind of the same context because it includes myself. These are like approaches that I will definitely follow if I want to organize another event or like any developer focused event, right? So number one here is diverse skill recognition, which is still under the developer empathy, where you acknowledge various skills, their interests, and then the career objective of developers. That's the first point. The second point is inclusive programming. You'll be wondering, what exactly do I mean by inclusive programming? What I'm talking about here is organizing sections, workshops, and resources suitable for the experts, like for different expertise level, considering your research or some of the in-depth insights that you've gotten from that developer ecosystem that you are currently organizing, event for, and also programming languages that that would take anyone literally from novice to mid-level or expert. And then the last but not least on this, in this point that I'm talking about is specialized local meetups. So organizing local meetup is another way for you to understand developer needs, to understand specific things that is kind of aligned with that particular community. So organizing local gatherings centered around, specific technologies and skills that align with developers' current abilities. So a good example here is if you are organizing an event and you want to or maybe you want to organize an event. So don't let me take it from the perspective of somebody that is already, into the system and they have organized 1 or 2, 3 different developer events or like events generally in tech. But then for the perspective of somebody that is also getting started, but they have like this idea of organizing a particular event for a specific niche. These are some of the approach that will be very, very important for you to take a look at to get started in making that your event a successful event. So to reiterate again, it's just diverse skill recognition, inclusive programming, and also specialized local meetup. So an example here, which I know many of us might be familiar with, is the Google I/O. But then I'm just using Google I/O because they kind of, do a hybrid event where people would attend in person, people would join online, and then they also they are live streaming it where people can join online, right? But then let's take a look at developer festival programs by GDG. So I mentioned specialized local meetup. I would explain something about DevFest. I know many of us might already hear the word DevFest or like familiar with it, but if you are not, this is a developer festival event organized by Google developer groups in different environments and then in different local areas. So for example, in Nigeria, we have different DFest events that normally happen like every year. We have DevFest Lagos, DevFest Abuja, DevFest Ibadan, we have DevFest, Akure, we have DevFest, a lot of DevFest in across all the 36 states, where this particular developer festival targets the local community for that particular environment. So when I say DevFest Lagos, I'm talking about developer festival in Lagos. So when I mention taking a look at DevFest Ibadan, we talk about developer festival in Ibadan. So these are ways for you to understand their needs, because now you are organizing an event that is closer to them and then that's easily accessible within that local community. So this might necessarily not be like a very big event. It could just be a meetup where you have like 20 to 30 people, where you get to talk about things, people share their ideas, people, talk about maybe a particular technology, how to build application with that technology, what are some of the things you need to consider to build those applications and all of that. So I hope you guys get the idea of how closer you could get with events, and also how, this example I gave highlights some of the things that you might already be familiar with, that these people, the organizers of this event in local community are kind of utilizing to get closer to their developer community and also to their members generally. So now, this is the first part of how to engage developer effectively. Let's take a look at the second one, which is event maximization. So event maximization is quite, pretty straightforward, like as the name implies. But then these are strategies. These are like specific strategies that aim at, ensuring both attendees and organizers to derive the maximum benefits from a particular event. So it's not about just attending the event as a developer, but it's also about how can the organizer maximize, maximize this event to even do a better one the following year, if it's a yearly event, if it's not monthly or weekly events, and also understanding the audience. Of course, if they have like sponsors that sponsor the event, how to best, put out the sponsors, companies or products out there during the event, how to showcase some of these things so that the sponsors does not feel left out. They also feel part of the event, and also they also get the maximum benefit from that particular event. So in this event maximization, we have two categories, which I already mentioned, which is the attendees and the organizer. So let's take a look at what the attendees stand to get, or like the aim, and also the organizer. So the first one here is the attendees, right? So for attendees, this involves making valuable connection, number one. Number two, valuable learning experience from the events, because some of these events contains like you could have like talks, workshop, a different session, keynote, and all of that. These are valuable learning experience for attendees. Another one is networking opportunity, which is very, very important for attendees, where attendees get to do it easily compared to having like different what's it called? So for example, that when you want to like network or like meet other developers, you might find it difficult because you're always in your home, writing code. You don't really go out. So how can you meet all of these guys? It's very hard, right? But then when you attend events as an attendee, you get the opportunity to network with other developers and also discuss opportunities that could help you scale as an individual, or like that could help you upskill as an individual. And another one is getting resources that align with your professional development. During a particular event, to maximize any event for attendees, right, you get to, after every presentation, the default is that presenters or like speakers or facilitators get to share their experience, and not just sharing their experience, share resources and also sharing their slides that could help you on your own, where you can go through and then learn more about that particular topic and use all of those resources to upskill professionally in your own area of expertise. Like maybe you're a designer, depending on the type of event. If you're a front-end developer, a cloud advocate, a back-end developer, these are the things you benefit from attending events. Another one is, which is the other categories for organizers, right? This includes like achieving, objectives like brand promotion. If you have like specific brand that you want to promote, or any brand that is currently sponsoring that event, how can you promote it? These are ways for you to maximize events, brand promotion, doing things like community building, what is, excuse me, what is going to happen before, like pre-event and also after events, which is post-event activity. How can you get like useful feedbacks from that particular event so as to make the next one a better version of that particular, yearly event that you guys, like any organizers organize on a yearly basis or monthly basis or whatever, specific period that the event happens every year or yearly. So another one is, I mentioned on that for organizers, I mentioned brand promotion, I mentioned community building, which includes the pre and post events. And also I mentioned like getting feedback directly from the attendees to learn more about how to improve their experience. So the entire goal here is for you to create a mutually, beneficial environment for both parties to gain a substantial and a meaningful advantage. So the substantial and meaningful advantage here is on both attendees that attended the event and also the organizers. Sorry, just to check again, am I still audible? Can anyone confirm that?
Yes, you are audible. I can hear you.
Yeah, all right, thank you very much. So let me just continue with the presentation. Let me hide this again. So now we talk about event maximization, which is categorized, which is under the category of effect, like engaging developers effectively. The two categories that we mentioned there is, excuse me, developer empathy and also event maximization. So now, but let's proceed. Can anyone see my screen? Can anyone tell me what they are currently seeing on my screen? Anyone?
I can't see your screen.
The screen is currently.
Is that just me?
It's blank. It's just
It's
blank.
blank, right?
Yeah,
That's what
it's
you
blank.
can see, right? That's exactly what it means when you don't practically or like carefully organize your event to effectively engage your developer. You end up seeing nothing. You get the idea? That's the idea, right? The idea is that we know something is up. I know I'm still presenting, but you can't see anything. That's exactly if you don't follow what is required for you to effectively engage your developers, maybe through events. Of course, we are talking about like understanding their needs and also event maximization in this part of the talk. This is exactly what happens. You get to see nothing. So when I mean nothing, either you were unable to organize the event or you organized the event and it's not a successful event. You didn't target the appropriate audience for that particular event. Just see a scenario where you want to organize a blockchain event. And then, or probably you have a tool that is used in a blockchain ecosystem. And then the tool is not, if you don't know how to do things in the blockchain ecosystem, you can't even use the tool. And then now that even if you know how to do things in the blockchain system, you need to learn how to use the tool. So now that tool, for example, now the owner of the tool wants to organize an event, and then the attendees, all the attendees that attended the event, literally have no idea about blockchain. What does it mean as a feedback for that person that organized the event? Because this tool is specifically for those that are building the blockchain ecosystem. And then all your attendees, all of them, they are pretty new. They don't even know what blockchain is. They've never written smart contracts. They've never developed anything with blockchain or like smart contracts. So what does that imply? The event is not successful, which means that you just organized the event. You didn't do your research. You did not think about developer empathy. You did not think about finding their needs, like getting closer to them to understand who are your target audience, what are some of the needs that you need to cater for during that event, and what are the things you need to focus on that particular event. So now let's proceed. We've talked about engaging developers effectively. Let's talk about executing impactful developer events, which is the example I just gave now. So impactful events generally takes quite a lot, right? But then it's either you get it or you don't get it. You understand? Although there's always a room for you to improve as an event organizer, but then it still fall under, it's either you get it or you don't get it. So let's take a look at what we have under executing impactful developer events. What does this even involve in the first place? So to just like summarize what executing impactful developer event means is this involves planning and organizing events that leaves a lasting positive impact on the developer community. So I want you guys to do something in the chat session. Can you tell me one event that left a lasting and positive impact on you since you have been attending developer community events? Let's go. Anyone, just drop any. You can just drop it on the chat. I'm going to see it. So while we drop that, I can see chats coming in already. So while you drop that, I also want to mention that when you want to create or execute impactful developer events, it includes a careful consideration of different things, right? One of it is event team for that particular event. Another one is ensuring diverse participation for that event. And because you have a team and then you are ensuring diverse participation rather, and then of course your event should also provide resources that are useful for those that are attending that particular event. And also, most importantly, choosing what type of event you want to organize, if it's going to be a physical event, a virtual event, or hybrid event. It's as simple as saying, I want to organize events, just like the DevMa event right now, as you all are joining and then listening to me. We are on in a different location. And then because we are organizing, this event is a virtual event and it's a well-planned event in such a way that you get everybody online. There's a team for the event. You know what my session is all about. And I'm here to talk about things around, developer community management, which I would also share resources for you that will help you, and also share my slide at the end of the presentation. Which means that with all of this, you can go back on your own. If you have any events you have been, thinking to plan and you don't know how to start, this would be like a template or like a refresher or like a starter for you to understand the need for that event. And then not just the event, but an event that will leave a lasting and a positive impact on the developer community that you're targeting, or like those developers that attended your event. So I also categorize this in two different categories, which is like the in a broader way, right? There are a lot of events, but I kind of categorize it. If you are doing events, I categorize it as event format and dynamics. And then the other one is hackathon excellence. So the most common event that you're likely going to see within the developer ecosystem is either you're doing an event or you're doing an hackathon. That's like the broader term of events, right? Is either you're doing broader term of activities that you can engage with developer community. So if it's not events, and then under the event you have that physical, hybrid, and also online event, or you're organizing an hackathon that could also be physical, hybrid, or like online hackathon. So let's take a look at these two different categories that we have for executing impactful developer events. Number one is, which is the first category, planning and executing great hackathon. The first point here is choosing a relevant and engaging topic or challenges, right? So if you want to organize an hackathon, it's important to carefully structure the type of topic or like the theme for that particular hackathon, or like a challenge. So you can have, depending on the industry you're targeting, if you want people to build like end users, products that target farmers, or that target, the medical sector, or that target the entertainment sector, or fintech, there are different categories. That's the first thing you need to do, is to identify the topics or like the challenges that currently exist, and then that you want people to build product to solve that particular challenge, right? So of course there can be different challenges, but most hackathons, they mostly just settle with one particular challenge and then encourage developers to participate and then build challenge. And then build products rather that tailored to solve that particular challenge for the hackathon. Another one here is encouraging a mix of skill sets and then backgrounds. So you need to put in more effort to encourage a mix of different skill sets, experience level, and then different backgrounds for them to participate. This still boils down to like the type of hackathon and then the specific niche. Some hackathons are open to the public where they just tell you need to come up with an idea and then find a particular challenge and then build a product to solve that particular challenge. And then some would say, hey, this hackathon is not just open to the public. This hackathon is specifically for, agricultural sector. There's this issue of farmers getting payments or getting paid whenever they have their farm produce out there. It's hard to get like payments, or like when they get payments, the intermediaries that help them to sell those farm produce, they don't remit payments appropriately back to the farmers and all of that. It means that hackathon is targeting a solution that can help farmers to receive payments directly without any intermediary. So that hackathon is already telling you this is the challenge, and then this is the challenge, and then we are encouraging you to build a product that solves this particular challenge. Another one here in planning and executing great hackathon is writing a clear instruction on how to participate. That would save a lot of back and forth or like questions within the developer community, because now you can put it out there and then everyone go through the guidelines, the instructions, and then they can follow through to understand how they can participate, how they can submit their project, what are some of the timelines that is required for the submissions, and what are some of the things that you need to know to be successful when you participate in the hackathon. Another one here, this is kind of niche somehow, because it's not all hackathon that require like a particular SDK or tool that you need to build on. But then it's worth mentioning because there are hackathons that are specifically created because they want people to build using their SDK. So it's important to know that you need to have the SDK is ready, or any tools that is relevant for the hackathon ready before the hackathon. To be honest, I've seen a scenario where people, they are yet to even figure out or like plan what the hackathon looks like, or like what their SDK they want people to build on looks like. And then they already started pushing for hackathons. And then before you know it, the timeline is so close in such a way that the SDK is not ready, or like contains quite a lot of bugs. And then they didn't take time to finalize all of these things before people start building on it. And then it ends up like having tons of problem or like complaints because people cannot successfully leverage that particular tool before they start building something within the hackathon, period, right? Another one here is providing experts guidance and necessary tools for participants. This is like very, 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 very important. You don't just tell people to participate, write clear instruction, and do all of those things without having like moderators or like experts to guide them on what to do at every level. You're not, definitely like micromanaging them, but you are just trying to make sure that they are up to speed on what the hackathon requirements are. And also, in case they have like questions that are not like programming related, it's kind of organization related question where they want to understand, the timeline, they want to understand some of these requirements. You need to have like guidance, you need to have moderators that are available to guide everyone participating in that hackathon on how to be successful at the end of the day. So these are the top things you need to have in mind, where if you are planning to execute great hackathons, this should be your focus. This should be some of the things you always, you put to place before you start any of this hackathon, or before you start thinking of hackathons. Right? There are a lot of other, contributions like options that you can go for, but the ones I list out here are like things that can get you really, focused and then on board to prepare and plan and also execute great hackathons for any developer ecosystem. So example here is, I don't just want to talk about organizing, but without mentioning example. Example here is, I don't know if anyone is familiar with Major League Hacking. They organize hackathon like every time. If you check it out, you see that they have like hackathons ongoing every time, and they are mostly online hackathon. And then I think they used to do hybrid hackathon too, but they mostly do online hackathon, and a lot of people do participate globally. Another one here is Google with Google's hash code. If anyone is familiar with Google hash code, it's also an example of great hackathons that are properly planned and also execute. That are properly planned and executed every time they kind of do any hackathon specifically for a particular niche, or like opening up the hackathon to the public. But then to come up with their own idea, their own problem, and then try to build a product using their tech stack to solve a particular challenge they are working on. Another one is It Global. This is Ethereum Global events. It's mostly event and hackathon. They organize like globally. You have like Global Paris, you have Global Istanbul, Global New York, Global, like it's kind of global. So what they do is they bring like they organize events. They organize events, they also organize hackathon. And then during this hackathon, you have like 3 days in-house hackathon where everybody participates physically, and then you build. When you build, you get like workshop to understand some of the tools that you want to use to build. And then after the entire session, or like the entire hackathon, right, like at the end of that particular event, it's a 3 days hackathon. At the third day, later later after the third day, probably that same day, or like the next day after the hackathon period end, you get feedback and response based on your submission. If you are if you win any of the bounties available, or you are one of the first, second, or third runner-up for that particular hackathon. So these are popular hackathons that you can Google and then see how they plan their hackathon, or like participate in the hackathon and see how hackathon are being planned and then successfully executed because of all of these things they put in place to make sure the hackathon goes as planned. So moving on so I've talked about planning as execution. So I want to talk about the event dynamics here, which is talking about key differences when you consider a physical event and also a virtual event, right? This is under the event category because we have different type of event that you might want to do with developer ecosystem. Maybe you want to have a physical event or virtual event. But what does physical event means? It means that you offer an in-person interaction where we have hands-on and also tangible networking opportunities. But if it's virtual event, it means that everything happens online. You provide accessibility, lower cost, and then a broader reach, but to require effective digital engagement and strategies. And then the hybrid model is you combining both physical and then virtual events to cater for wider audiences. So I'll talk about the example. I'll give the examples in the next slide, but I just want you to understand, like, there are physical events, there are virtual events, and then there are also hybrid model being used, or like hybrid events where we have, it's happening physically, and then we have it happening online where people can join online or they attend in person. So the example here, there are a lot of examples, right? There are a lot. In fact, what we are currently doing right now at DevMa is also an example of, online events, right? So, but I want to point out these two examples, which I know everyone might be familiar with. The Apple worldwide developer community activity, and also the Google I/O. So if you take a look at the Apple's WWDC, if they have like particular event, or like they have things to showcase, they stream it live and then get everyone attention globally. The same thing for Google I/O. Google I/O also does like streaming, and they also have a set of experts, or like set of individuals to attend in person during that same event. So the same experience you're having looking at the conference or streaming this conference online is the same experience to also get if you are attending in person. Of course, in person requires you have additional opportunity like networking with others, doing handshake, talking one-on-one, having one-on-one conversation with people that you meet physically. But then the idea or the entire theme of the event and what the event is trying to communicate get to reach to both individuals, so like people that are joining online or people that attended the event physically, right? So these are the two examples that I want you guys to check out how they are doing things, and then how physical and then virtual events evolve, because there are key considerations for you to understand if the event you want to do should be a virtual event or should be a physical event. But then it's ideal to understand that even if it's virtual or physical, it needs to give the exact same value in both cases. The goal is to have particular value communicated either from the speakers, of course, from the speakers, because they're the ones that are coming to dish out an information, or talk about things, or build things, or maybe it's a workshop or any of these things. But then it's ideal for you to understand that the key differences and consideration is based on the type of events that you want to organize, and then what you are looking to achieve at the end of that event. So that's it for hackathons and also event dynamics, which includes the different consideration of physical versus the virtual event. All right. So can you see my screen once again? I know you guys will have guessed what I want to do. Can anyone confirm you can see my screen?
No, it's just black.
Exactly. That's the goal. So you see, and then say it's blank because the idea here is if your hackathon is not properly planned and your event is not properly planned, considering if it's going to be a physical event or an online event, this is how you will know something is happening, but it will be of no value because I can't see anything, just like the way you're experiencing. You won't see results as an attendee. Organizers would also not see any results, and the event will be categorized as event that flopped, right? So moving on, let's talk about now how to engage developers effectively, how to organize events and hackathon. So let's talk about optimizing virtual event experience. So why am I picking virtual? This is because virtual seems like the easiest event to organize, but at the same time, it's also the hardest if it's not properly planned. That's why I want to talk about virtual event. Because physical event, you ideally know that if people attend the event, you already have your speakers planned, and then you're good to go. What about virtual event where you are not even sure if people are going to attend, and then you have a lot to dish out, but you don't know how to get to where your audience are, particularly for that event, right? So when you are talking about optimizing um, a virtual event, what does it mean generally? So this focuses on improving the effectiveness and engagement of an online developer event, and at the same time, it involves having interactive platform and incorporating engaging content such as live question and answer polls, and providing accessible resources like recording and documentation. So the idea here is that you want to organize an event online, you need to define how you need to choose your platform that you want to use for that event. We have a lot of online platforms. Excuse me. We have a lot of online platforms where you could engage developers directly. And then we have a lot of online platform that gives you the opportunity to have Q&A, opportunity to have polls, opportunity like what we're currently experiencing with Zoom, where you can have breakout session, you can have chat option, Q&A, you can get speakers to present their screen. All of these things are ideal when you are organizing a virtual event because that's the experience you want people to come and experience, and also not just expressing like the beauty of the platform, but also making it seamless for them to interact or engage with instructors or facilitators or speakers. But then I also categorize it in such a way that, because we know that there are best practices for hosting these virtual events that I'm talking about. So the first one here is platform. And then the second one is resources and interactive content. So let me talk about platform. What does it mean to get like platforms? Okay. All right. So, okay, yeah, it's pretty simple. Here, when you want to get platform, it's important to identify the specific platform, the engaging platform that you want to utilize. And then the platform must have like basic requirement, like a user-friendly site where people can easily understand, because sometimes you don't even know who is joining your content, your session online. It might be their first time using that platform. So it means that both from the organizer perspective and also first time user perspective, the platform needs to be user-friendly, and also it needs to have some sort of interaction that is already built in. that everyone can test out. So another one here is, apart from platform, which includes like resources and interactive content, is having some sort of chat, and also maybe chat enable. Of course, this comes with the platform. That's why the most important one here is for you to organize an effective virtual event is the platform that you are using. Once you pick the wrong platform, you get it all wrong. There's no way out, right? And these platforms gives you like, I already mentioned that earlier on, where you have breakout session, you have, different ways to keep your audience engaged throughout the event. And also, it's important to know that you need to give out resources and also have interactive content where you can, at the end of the event, you can provide recordings, you can provide some sort of, documentation or support material that help the audience that joined the event to actually to check back on their own, check recordings, check documentation, check all of these things to understand some of the things that they think they know during the presentation when the speaker is like giving that particular talk, but then checking it after the presentation just to properly understand how to do it on their own. And also, last but not the least, here is, online meetups and webinars, right? So meetups and webinars, you can do all of these things online, but how best can you, make the most out of hosting effective virtual events, considering we've talked about the platform and then we're talking about the resources now. So there are a lot of resources that will be shared during every presentation. So it's ideal for us to put in place, or like for the organizer to put in place an approach where they can get access to record, like links to recording or recordings to all the members that joined the session. And then they can also give room for question and answer during the event. They can get material, support material that can be useful for the audience, anyone that joined the event online, like the developer community or the developer ecosystem. So moving on, same thing applies. If things are not done right, you're definitely not going to see a result. Or you see a result, but it will be a very terrible result. So now we talk about effectively managing or like engaging developer community. Let's talk about hackathons and events. Let's talk about best practices. So now let's talk about promotion and visibility, where you kind of promote your events so that you get closer to your audience and then get closer to where they are. So you don't just assume those that join are those that have like the required experience to be a part of that event. Do you remember the story I gave about, having a tool in the blockchain space and then organizing an event, and people that eventually attended the event does not have any experience with blockchain? You can see how hard it is to communicate things easily with audience, and then they will just be staring at you. They literally do not understand anything from what you're currently, talking about, which is very hard. So let's talk about how to promote and then bring visibility to your event. So in a broader way, I categorize them into 3 different categories, which is making strategic partnership, marketing and incentive strategies, and then community management. These are the 3 categories that I want us to take a look at together. So what does it mean to take a strategic partnership? So the first thing to look out for, like to think through, is partnering with educational platforms, or like partnering with platforms that are already online, that are visible, and also collaborating with, depending on the type of event anyways, So because your platform or partners or anyone that you're doing strategic partnership with could be like institutions, could be, companies, could be all of these community, developer community and all of that. But then the idea here is to make sure that you have those partnerships and you make sure those partnerships happens for you to effectively promote that particular event within the developer community. Another one is leveraging platforms for outreach. So when I mean platform for outreach, I'm specifically talking about developer platforms. So we have a lot of developer platforms. So in fact, you can even go as far as leveraging GitHub to either promote that particular event. So how do you even do that on GitHub? Is that even possible to do on GitHub? So we have seen projects that they are trending on GitHub. And then if you take a look at that project, having visibility on that project means that whenever that project wants to organize something, you are likely going to remember or somehow follow them. And then if they want to organize the event, you'll be the first to know, or like you'll be aware of that particular event, which means that doing any of these activities with that particular products that have a very good visibility on GitHub would automatically expose your events to their own audience also. Another way of doing strategic partnership is having community engagement, interacting with local and online communities where you could partner with them. And partnering with them means that maybe they want to join you as a community partner, or they want to join you as, or you want to have them as a media partner, or you want to have them as, any key partnership that that the value that will be provided is required for you to organize your. And then last but not the least on strategic partnership is influential collaboration. So you can get influential people that that have like maybe large following or like really influence, like good influence within the developer ecosystem to help you promote, maybe by making a tweet or by making an announcement or utilizing their newsletter to make posts about your event to get more people involved or like more people to register or be aware of the event that's currently happening. So now let's talk about the marketing incentive strategy. So one thing you need to understand about developer community is that it's hard to incentivize developers because developers are type of audience that they don't deal with things that are transactional online. You can't tell, it's hard for you to see where a situation where you tell a developer that when you join this meetup, you get $50. You never see that type of event, specifically for the developers. But when you say attending this event gives you $100 worth of AWS credits, then you see the difference, right? So you are not giving them the money, but you are giving them an incentive that is useful for them to build or like to become a better version of themselves. And then they'll be happy to be a part of that event. Because they know that at the end of the day, they might be the winner of that particular, giveaway that you're doing. And then they also know the importance that once they win that particular giveaway to help them, succeed as a developer or like grow as a developer. So when you're organizing a developer event, you need to be strategic enough on how you promote the event. And then don't promote it, don't make it transactional in such a way that it's obvious that you're just looking for people to attend the event, because this is not just an event from random people, it is developer focused event. Another one is utilizing social media, which is part of marketing and incentive strategy. Utilizing social media a lot, any social media platform, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, I don't know, depending on where you are currently active, right? There are a lot of platforms that you can leverage to push your event, even without like paying for marketing, especially or trying to pay for hard and promotion. Just doing organic marketing, connecting with the right community that you have your audience or you think you might get your audience from, and then doing all of those things could help you set you in a position where you can market your event effectively within the developer community. And the last but not the least here is having like email campaigns. So if you already have like a way, maybe you have like existing developer community, you can send newsletter to them, you can sell email campaigns, like you can do email campaigns. Some people do paid email campaigns, right? Which is not bad, especially when you don't really have the audience and then you're trying to grow the audience. So you can do like paid email campaigns to reach out to, or just reach out to existing individuals that have like developers with good numbers of email addresses that you can utilize, and then leverage them, let them promote your events. You get access to it. You can put the CTA. The CTA could mean that the people that wants to attend the event will register for the event. And then when they are registered for the event, part of the requirements will be for them to provide an email, name and all of that. That can be useful later on for email campaigns for subsequent events that is happening. So last one here, which is community engagement. I mentioned it when you are doing strategic partnership, you do some sort of community engagement. But why I pointed out like community engagement on its own is because it's something that you need to deal with on your own as an organizer of a particular community, and also as somebody that is looking to understand the need of a developer ecosystem before trying to organize the event for that developer ecosystem. Because all in all, the goal is that when you are able to engage with developers, you understand the type of event that you need to organize. And then when you organize that event, you understand what people are really looking out for. So the same flows goes, and then if you don't do it effectively, you are not going to see any results. That's just the truth. The best way is to think through all of these things that we mentioned, like we've talked about in this talk, and then go through them, understand how these things are done. And then when you start doing them, you can always improve on your first approach, or like, first iteration, which is normal. So, but the more you understand all of these things, the better it is for you to start and then to improve on as time goes on. So now let me recap the entire thing. Like we've discussed quite a lot already during this talk. We've discussed quite a lot already, but then I have like 2 bullet points I want to use as a recap here, which is number 1, tailor your content and format to diverse developer needs for effective engagement. Number 2 here is plan inclusive, impactful events and consider both physical and virtual format. There's no good event because the event is virtual, or there's no good event because the event is physical, or there's no good event because the event is hybrid. The idea is to consider which one would work. I've seen a lot of events that start virtually and then they end up doing physical events. So because you're doing it virtually does not mean that it won't succeed. And then because you are doing it physically does not mean that it won't also succeed. But the idea is just to understand what are some of the things you need, or like what are the things your community member need. Just an example, when you have a community that span across Africa, and then you want to do, the best way to engage with those communities or like do events is to have online events, because you want to include everyone. Because everyone, of course, will not be able to travel down for the event. Then you are now planning a physical event. Planning a physical event in a particular location, it means that you are starving the other people in other location. Because if the event is solely physical and then there's nothing like virtual or like an hybrid system, it means that other people are not going to benefit, because that particular event is just within that nature. It's a physical event, which is harder than, you thinking about, because now it means that the community member will feel left out of that particular event, which casually means that you are not building an inclusive ecosystem within the community where everybody feel among as a member. You understand? So the last but not the least here is use strategic partnership and marketing for broad and effective event promotion. Like, this is important. You need to be strategic about it. You don't want to do events because you want to do event and you want to do it all alone. You now think like partnering with community might not be a good way. Please delete that idea and then just make sure that you have strategic partnership that will help you put your event where it's necessary. And then from there, you can have broad and effective event promotion. In fact, some of them is even for free. That's even the good thing, because when you reach out to some community and just let them know you are doing this event and you like to have them as community partner, let me share one hack with you. Right, if you want to organize an event and you know that this event you don't have a strong developer community base already, a good idea is to meet communities that are already existing. Either they are big or not, just go and meet them, talk to them about the event, try to get them on board as a community partner. It will help you with free promotion. You're not going to pay them. They'll help you with free promotion, but you need to be careful not to take advantage of any of this, right? Because one thing I've seen about developer ecosystem is it's a community thing. So the more, the merrier. So the more you get like people, the better it is for that particular event, right? So engaging other community means that they will also be able to push the event for you within their community member, encourage their community members to attend the event, to be virtually or physically, depending on what type of event you're planning. So that way you can reach out to more people faster and then effectively than you trying to make an ad on Facebook or Instagram that just randomly goes out to people which they are not even your target audience. You understand? So it's very important to make strategic, partnership and then marketing for you to have like broad and effective event promotion. So that's it from my end. Thank you so much for joining this event. So I created this QR code, which is a way for me to get feedback and understand if you guys have benefited anything from this talk, and also how this talk have helped you understand how to do a developer community engagement or management effectively. This survey or like this QR code contains a link, redirects you to a particular form that takes less than 1 minute to fill in, just to get your feedback, to understand how this talk have helped you in a way, and also how I should improve on giving out the information or like specific information about my talk. And of course, you can find me online as online stuff everywhere. Thank you for joining my session.